Hello, I'm Farah Driver. I'm your instructor for this Survey of World History 1. This is an entirely asynchronous online class, and there are 3 of you, Section 2, 6, and 10, that I will be teaching this fall. So hopefully you are watching this video because you are in one of those 3 classes. Now, as this is an online class, it does not operate the same way that the class would if it were in the actual classroom. Because it's asynchronous, there are no lectures. It is very much a learn on your own kind of course. That's the way it's designed. That's the way I designed it because I assume that's the way you personally wanted it. But because it's that way, and because it's a college course, not a high school course, it's going to require you to do a lot of reading and a lot of writing. I'm not going to lie about that. Everything in this course is very much designed for you to process information and to consider what you're learning and then relay it back to me in the form of an argument. So with that in mind, this is what you're seeing right now is the top page of our D2L page. It's the introductory page. I have a nice welcome to the course, which is going to give you some of the same information I just gave you. One of the things I want you to be very clear on straight off the bat is that, again, there's a lot of writing and a lot of reading involved in this. All right, so as this is our home page, this is the first page you click on, you'll notice that it is organized effectively the same way Brightspace is, with the content page, the assignments, and the discussions all set up right through here. And those are the big 3 tabs that you're going to use. You also have a content browser over here. I'm not as inclined to use that because it's just going to open up that file folder for you to show you whatever's in it. You'll notice down here, though, it has the calendar. You'll notice also that I already have your 4 journal deadlines already set up. So you can go straight to those to know when something's due and what you have to do for it. But for right now, let's go ahead and go to the content page because this is the basic outline of the course. I have worked really hard to structure it so that it's easy for you to find the things in it you're going to need. Over here on the left-hand side, each one of these is effectively a file folder, one for each week. As you'll notice, the most important stuff, what I call the meta information, is the first file that you see. It has your syllabus and rubrics folder in it. In fact, as you scroll down, I'll show you syllabus and rubrics, information on plagiarism, because I take plagiarism very seriously. We'll discuss that in a minute. The different types of sources we use in history, primary, secondary, and tertiary, which we'll discuss also in a few minutes. Blank maps, cognitive bias information, because one of the focuses of this course is literally learning not only how to interpret the information you read, but also to ask yourself, why is that information on the page that you're reading? Why did someone feel it was important to write that? That's bias, and in this sense, we don't mean bias in the bad way, we mean bias in the sense of perspective. Below that, the how to do historical research and write history papers, an important section because you're going to be doing at least 4 of those. How to study for history tests, because you'll have 2 of those, a midterm and a final. We'll talk about those in just a minute when we get to the syllabus. And then just some extra sources and resources for studying the history of civilizations. Video courses, there are places you can go to get information, Internet History Source Books, which is a really good collection of primary sources. All right, so with that in mind, once you get past the most important stuff section, the meta section, the rest of it is organized by week, and this literally parallels the syllabus course outline itself. It does require that you know which week we're in, but you can do that by way of the date. So, all right, now with that in mind, the first thing I want to talk about, and we'll go ahead and knock it out of the way now, is the syllabus. In this most important syllabus and rubric section, the syllabus itself is there. The grading rubric for the discussion boards, there are 13 of them, one for every week, again, because this is an online class and we are asynchronous, meaning we don't meet at any specific time. Attendance is taken by way of your submission of the discussion board posts every Thursday. The journal rubric, there are 4 of those. Those are due every 3 weeks. We'll talk about those in a minute. Some notes that I made for how to do a thorough discussion post and a thorough journal submission. The late policy, which is pretty straightforward, 10% per day for every day that you're late up to 3 days, at which point in time I reserve the right not to accept the paper. The late policy is ameliorated if you actually have a legitimate excuse for something being late, sickness, emergency, some pre-structured event that the university sponsors. The only requirement I make with that is that you let me know before the deadline, or in the case of an emergency, as close to the deadline as you can. Bias and historiography, two of the big things we'll be talking about a lot in here. This will give you some links to explain more about those. How and when to cite, because this is a writing class and it's an academic class, so you will be required to use APA citation. That would be the in-text parenthetical author, date, page number insert in the body of your work, and then a works cited page at the end, which will list your sources by the author's last name so that I can line them up with where you're citing them internally. This is a how and when to cite document to explain the format and when you need to do it. And you'll be required to use citation in everything you submit to me, discussion posts, the journal entries, and your midterm and your final, because those will be open book. Some information on how to study. And again, more things down through here to look at. So for right now, I want to start with this. We're going to look at the syllabus itself. All right. Again, this is me. My office is online because I will be doing this with you online. That is my email address at Georgia Gwinnett, the best way to get in touch with me, the easiest way to get in touch with me. I will get back in touch with you as quickly as I can. If you want to actually talk to me face-to-face, we can either set up a Zoom meeting at your convenience, but you'll need to let me know so I can plan it. And if, as a class, enough of you want to meet with me, then I'll actually schedule a class meeting at some point in time. But these will not be regular. As I said, this is an asynchronous class, which effectively means that you chose to take it so that you could do a lot of the work on your own, and that's how we will accommodate. I teach at another school as well, so Tuesdays and Thursdays my communication with you might be kind of spotty. I will email you as I can. The other school at which I teach I actually physically go to. And I actually, at Georgia Gwinnett, have taught in the classroom as well, so I'm very familiar with the campus and with the library, which is a wonderful place. You know, I love those. By email, to get in touch with me, as per the USG rules, you must do it from your university email. They have set up, as you may have noticed over the summer, and for those of you that are new, you haven't noticed, but I will tell you, over the summer, they did a lot of security changes in the system itself. And now, for the most part, if you're not sending something from your GGC email, the spam filters will sort it out. It won't even get to me. So if you want to get to me, you have to use your GGC email. I am not even supposed to look at an email coming from anywhere other than GGC. So please do bear in mind that any communication between us needs to be done through that system. Everything you send to me is official. It stays in the system as well, so be sure you pay attention to that. If you're going to send me nasty grams, it's probably best not to do it. Well, it's just best not to do it, but certainly don't do it through the GGC system. Brightspace is our learning function. That is the system that we use. Previously, it's been called Desire to Learn. I, unfortunately, being old school, will probably use the two interchangeably. So if you hear me say D2L or Desire to Learn, that actually means Brightspace. Obviously, because this is online, you're expected to have access to a computer, whether it be your own computer or one of the ones from the school. You're going to want to have enough access to it and at least some kind of external device to save your papers and probably your discussion board posts on. I encourage you, because periodically, as with all things involving the internet, the technology fails. If you have an external hard drive to save your discussion posts on, that is probably a wise plan as opposed to trying to enter them straight into the discussion board itself. Again, with all of that, you're going to want to have access to the course materials. Other than the textbooks, everything else you're going to need to read for the course is available on Brightspace. I've already uploaded it all for every week. You will need to get a textbook. I have and we'll see this in a minute, the syllabus set up and the reading assignments for each week set up on D2L to accommodate which chapters you need to read in any of the 3 major textbooks that the university uses. And again, I'll talk about those in a moment. You only need one of them. You don't need all 3. You only need one of them. And you can determine which one you wish to get. All right. Everything, again, must be submitted prior to the deadline. For discussion posts, the deadlines are Thursdays by midnight. Peer comments, you'll need to respond to at least 3 posts or 3 interrogatories to your post over the course of the period from Thursday after you post your own. You can't respond to anyone until you've posted your own. Thursday through Monday, but 3 different days. The whole idea is to keep discussions going, give us all time to exchange ideas and information. And again, if something's going to be late, you need to let me know prior to the deadline for it and let me know why. So there we go. Again, class details itself, web conferencing again. If necessary, we can do a virtual classroom video through Zoom. For the midterm and the final, you will definitely need to have Respondus Lockdown Browser. These are 2 links to information on how to install that and what exactly it means. You also will have to have a camera on your computer, as one of the things we do with the Respondus monitor is basically record you while you're taking the test to make sure you're not using anything you shouldn't be using. All right, so your course description, again, this is a wonderful course. It actually covers almost all of the history of mankind up to the last 500 years. So effectively, hundreds of thousands of years of history, fortunately for us, because this is a history class, and history is the study of the written word, unlike archaeology and anthropology, both of which study people and the things people do, the way they live, for anthropology, for archaeology, the things they build and construct and often leave behind. History studies the written word, which is why the vast majority of the history we're talking about, we're actually going to kind of cover in chapter 1. But then after that, with the actual agricultural revolution, the settling down, if you want to call it that, of people to grow things and stay in one place, eventually they get around to finding means of communication, such as writing, but there are other forms that we'll talk about. And it is these things that historians study. So effectively, we're kind of looking at just, I don't know, a couple of millennia that we're actually dealing with in this course, up to about the year, well, for us, around 1600. So, all right, so your required texts, again, you need a History of World Civilizations, 1500, not 1500, the present, up to 1500. Obviously, I need to change that, a volume 1. The ones that the university will have that you can buy, or the ones that you can get used copies of reasonably inexpensively on Amazon or any of the used textbook places. You may use either Ways of the World with Sources by Strayer and Nelson, Patterns of World History, Volume 1 by von Sivers, Denoyer, and Stowe, or Traditions and Encounters with Sources, again, edited principally by Bentley. Any one of these 3, Volume 1, yes, I realize that says Volume 2, it should say Volume 1, any of these are good. You may use any of those 3, not all 3, any one of them. Other sources that are provided for you on D2L or Brightspace will include Frankopan's The Silk Roads, which is also available through archive.org, hence the reason I have that there. Harari Sapiens, an actually wonderful, wonderful book. I have photocopied, scanned the sections you'll need from it. They are also available on Brightspace, as are the sections from Guns, Germs, and Steel, though you may also find it on archive.org. So these three other sources we will be using, but I have provided those for you. So unless you really want to buy a copy, you don't have to. All right. Any other sources that I come up with, I will provide for you. They will be on Brightspace and they will be linked in the week they are required. Okay, what you are going to be doing in this course. The course goals and objectives, pretty straightforward. These are provided to us by the department itself as part of what the university is required to do, so that should you, for some reason, decide you want to transfer to another university, when you transfer, if your grade is a C or better, then that means you've accomplished enough mastery of those things that it will work anywhere else. The course grading, GGC is on a straightforward 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 89 is a B, 70 to 79 is a C, 60 to 69 is a D, and then anything below 60 is an F. But hopefully we won't be worrying about any of those. Your grading, though, how I'm going to be grading, your discussion forums, because they are weekly and required, I will count your top 10 of those. The total on those are worth 40%, which is good because the same stuff that we're talking about in the discussions, you will also be discussing on the exams. So you want to bear that in mind. You'll have 4 journals at 8% each for a total of 32%. Again, those will be due every 3 weeks. You'll have 1 midterm at 13% and 1 final at 15%. And again, those will be online. They will be open book, open note, but hopefully that's all you will have to work with. I would prefer you not go off the reservation and use online stuff, mainly because they'll be timed and you won't really have time to be looking stuff up. Again, the late work policy, 10% per day for up to 3 days. After that, I reserve the right not to accept it. If you have a valid reason for it being late, you need to let me know as soon as you know, preferably before the deadline. Again, assessment tools. Again, we will talk in more detail about this as to how they are structured when you see the rubrics in just a few minutes. So, APA citation, again, required for everything, discussion boards, peer comments, journals, tests, and everything will be checked through Turnitin. Discussion board posts as well. So do not look to Course Hero or any of those wonderful places to get answers, mainly because most of my questions are designed to integrate with the various readings that you'll have for each week. You can't really find those anywhere else because I try to change those up every semester. And then again, if you do decide for some reason to go outside of your own work and efforts, Turnitin will let me know. I take plagiarism very seriously. This is what I call putting you on notice. The first time I catch you plagiarizing or stealing something from somebody else, you're going to get a 0 on that assignment. The second time I will report you to the Honor College because that's the way the university operates. Usually they will suspend you from the course at that point. You will have a chance to defend yourself, but for the most part, the second time is pretty much it, definitely, for the course. So try not to do it. There's no real reason to do it. You don't learn anything if you steal some other people's work, and it's just really something we frown upon. All right, so here's your basic syllabus chart of what we're going to do each week. And when things are due. Your discussions are always done on Thursday or due by Thursday at midnight. Your peer comments by Monday. Again, you need a minimum of 3 peer comments and they need to be spread over 3 different days. And I will take points off if you decide for some reason without a just reason. If you decide to save and just make a bunch of comments on Monday, you'll get points off. Again, the idea, because this is an interactive class and because you need to be exchanging ideas with your peers, the idea is to think about what you're talking about, consider what other people are saying, and support your arguments with the information that's provided in the textbooks themselves. So again, here's how we are. August the 29th, your first journal is due. It is already set up with the rubric so you can get to it and see what it's about. 3 weeks later, on September 19th, your second one's due. Midterm is will be sometime over the weekend of the 24th and 25th. That's actually Friday, Saturday, so that I will have time to grade them because your midterm grades are due on the following Monday, if I recall correctly. And again, the way I have it structured is basically our weeks run Tuesday to Monday, so that you'll have a little more time this first week to consider your first discussion post and get it laid out. So there we are. And we structure all of these things, where things are going. Our actual last day of class is November the 14th. And then the final exams are in the week of the 15th through the 21st. I will make your final exam accessible to you. You may pick when you want to take it during that week. But again, as with the midterm, it will be timed. So you will only have so long to work on it. All right. So course expectation. This is a history course. So I expect you to learn some history in it. Because of the nature of an online course, I can't expect you to memorize things. And to be fair, for the most part, most people now don't memorize things unless they use them a lot. Thus, as I said, I expect you to have the information at your beck and call almost all the time, which is why we structure this not so much as a memorize information, but as a process information, consider it, evaluate, and then use it to make arguments. Hence the reason why everything is designed as an essay, even your tests. All right, so important dates again. Classes begin Monday, August the 8th, when you're probably seeing this, hopefully. The drop-add period ends August the 14th. What that effectively means is you have a week to decide if you want to remain in this online course or if you want to change to somewhere else. I encourage you to do that rapidly. If you are coming into this course late, then you've already missed the first discussion. I don't usually give makeups for the first week of discussion. You'll need to know that material and understand it, but by my definition, you're already a week behind. So you're going to have to play some catch up if you're coming in here late. September 27th, midterm grades are due. That'll let you have some sense of how you're doing in the course. It will not, however, be an accurate reflection, because at that point in time, we'll really only have 2 of the journals and not the bulk of the discussions done. You'll have the midterm done, but it'll still be less than 50% of the graded material for the course, especially since with the discussions, I'm only counting your top 10. So mainly because it takes people a good couple of weeks to get a sense of what I'm looking for in these discussion posts, and to get a sense of citation when you have to cite. Again, we'll talk about that in a minute, but yeah, that mandatory citation tends to throw particularly new students, freshman students, first semester students, of which I'm sure there are many of you, tends to throw them off because they're not accustomed to this whole idea that not only do you cite when you quote, but you also cite when you're using someone else's idea, even if you put it in your own words. So yeah, if it's anything you get out of any of the sources, you got to cite. So, that being said, the 27th, you'll have until the 29th at 5 p.m. to decide if you want to continue the course. If not, you can drop it by September 29th with a W. That means it will show up on your transcript as an attempted course, but it won't actually hurt your overall average. Now, over time, you're only allowed so many W's for any particular course, so you want to take that into account as well. Again, the 14th of November, last day of class, 15th through 21st, final exams. The 29th, I have to submit grades, which means we effectively have 8 days or so from the end of exams. If you have any problems, if you're not where you want to be, you're going to want to let me know or stay in touch with me so that if we need to negotiate getting your grade better, we've got time to do it. So even after the class ends, you're going to want to be checking your email or paying attention just in case. Semester grades again the 29th, the 5th, they'll be available in Banner, and then commencement is actually December 1st. So if you are a graduating senior, keep up. Course changes, because things get weird, COVID gets weird, because we're online. I don't see us having that many. It tends to fall pretty well in line, and all the discussion posts are there and structured. If something happens and, I don't know, we lose the internet for a week or something, then we'll talk about some changes. But for the most part, I think we're pretty safe here, unlike in an actual brick and mortar classroom. All right, so School of Liberal Arts, this section right here is all from the liberal arts college itself. It's got your basic what we're here to do, what we want to kind of focus on in this course, and of course the IEE goals, the things that we want you to be able to take away from this class, particularly 1 and 2. The idea of demonstrating ideas in written and oral form, more so in written form in this course than oral. But again, if you want to talk to me, we can set up a Zoom at any point in time. Creativity and critical thinking, these are very, very big. And the interdiscipline and multidisciplinary context, very much so. We're going to be talking about lots and lots of different ways in which history overlaps with things like, again, anthropology, archaeology, but also other areas. Definitely intercultural awareness. It's a very big part of what a World Civ course is about. And the production of scholarly and creative works that demonstrate your ability to process the information you're reading and make arguments with it. Again, I use Turnitin for everything. And again, your APA is required. Here are when you must cite. That's not should, that's must, i.e. mandatory, i.e. you have to. Definitely when you use a direct quote or a partial quote of someone else's specific words. Most of us know this one. This is not a hard one. The quotes themselves must be in quotation marks because that lets your reader, me, but also your classmates in discussion posts, know that you're using the exact words that someone struggled to put together to make that idea clear. And then the citation should come immediately after the end of the closed quotation. But you must also cite if you're using a paraphrase, which means you're taking an idea from someone else or a piece of information from someone else, but using it in your own words. You've decided how to write it out and relate it. The idea, though, was still theirs, so you still must cite it. And this is a trickier one when something's uncommon knowledge. For our purposes, we're going to assume you know nothing about world history, which means everything is going to be uncommon knowledge. So anytime you use anything in here that's out of the textbook, it must be cited. With that in mind, a works cited page or a works cited list for the discussion posts are required at the end of everything you submit. That would be the alphabetical listing by the author's last name of all the works you use, because the idea here with APA is that when you put that citation in the body of your work, it should open with that author's last name, and thus I should be able to go straight to that specific full citation at the end of your work by matching the author's name to it. So this is all pretty much explained in the how and when to cite handout, as well as with the APA style guides available through the library. So examples of plagiarism, again, directly quoting someone's work without citation or quotation marks. Overusing quotations in a written work, as in instead of giving me any thought of your own, you just can put a string of quotes together from the various authors. That doesn't do us any good. You're not processing information when you do that. You're just copying and pasting somebody else's ideas. So that's not actually doing your work. You use quotes to support your ideas, not to replace them. Paraphrasing, using their ideas without giving them credit for those ideas. Submitting assignments and other work that are not your own, hence the reason I say stay away from Course Hero. Stay away from any of what I think of as the paper mills, places where other people have written papers and you go buy them. No. We're not doing that here. We're not hiring other people to do the work. So bear that in mind as well. And also citing primary and secondary sources incorrectly. Normally what this means is that you go to somewhere like Wikipedia, which is not a valid academic source. It pains me to say that. I like Wikipedia myself, and I often check Wikipedia for information, particularly to corroborate things I know already. But because it is open source, anybody can go in and change it. Now, I know that Wikipedia has been working to try very hard to make it more difficult for inaccurate information to be there. But until they actually make it proprietary, there's still always the possibility that someone has gone in and changed something or done something inaccurate, posted something inaccurate in it. Thus, If you go to Wikipedia to look something up and then turn around and because you don't want to do the work yourself, use their sourcing, their footnotes and so forth as your citation, that's lying to me, and that's plagiarizing. You didn't actually go to that source. You went to Wikipedia and paraphrased it from there, which means it may or may not be accurate. Now, again, it's going to be a little harder because I've picked most of your sources for you, and I know these sources because I love these sources. It's going to be a little harder for you to do that, so I don't encourage you in any respect to do this. Just be sure when you cite correctly and you cite actually to where you got the information. All right, and then of course your basic examples of academic dishonesty. This first one, the submitting a single assignment for multiple courses, this is called recycling. And I understand if you've had a course before and you want to use something that you wrote there, you're welcome to ask me if you can. But again, because the nature of this course requires you to use information and sources that I've already structured for you, if you want to use the basis of something you used before and add to it, that's good. But you need to let me know, and you need to ask me if I think that it's viable. Sure, I'll be glad to let you do that and then let you edit it to include the stuff that I need. Assignments submitted by other students, that's a big no-no. I've actually had students who for some reason think it's okay to copy and paste discussion posts from other people. I'm like, no, that was their work, not yours. Of course, using paper mill courses, Course Hero and others, and using unauthorized materials during an exam. The only materials that you will be allowed to use for the exams will be your textbooks and the sources I've provided. But again, outside of that, you shouldn't be bouncing around all over the web, which is part of what the web camera function is for, is to make sure that you're not. Sources for you, the Academic Enhancement Center, always a great place to go. They effectively provide free tutoring according to what we have here. And definitely a good place to go for writing. If you're not a strong writer, this is a good place to go to submit your work, to see what kinds of editing you might need or where you might have holes that need to be filled. On-campus tutoring also available. Check with the tutoring center to find out when they have history tutors available if you think you need them. I encourage this because history, as you know, is not an easy concern. Again, a lot of reading and writing and processing of information. Things that you might need some help with, especially if you took this course thinking, oh, it'll be easier because it'll be online. Yeah, maybe not so much. So, disability services, if you have accommodations, you need to get those to me. But they need to be official through the Disability Services office. Here are ways you can go about doing that, getting in touch with them so that we can give you the best advantage possible. Kaufman, I love the library. This should not be a surprise to anybody. I am a historian. We spend a lot of time reading. So yeah, the library is excellent. You can actually find copies of textbooks in the library, which means that if you can't afford one or don't have access to one during the first couple of weeks of the course, you can go there. And I know for a fact they have Strayer and Nelson. And I am not averse. I realized that I had ISBN numbers for current editions in the list of required sources, but you're not required to have the newest up-to-date version. Von Sivers, I know, has a new edition. I love Von Sivers. That's actually my favorite of the books, The Patterns of World History. But if you want to use an older version, if you can find the last edition more cheaply, which usually can, that's perfectly fine. You are welcome to. All I request is that you make sure, if you are, that when you cite it, you let me know specifically which edition it is. I have them all, so I can double check your page numbers and your sources, because primary sources, again, which you will be using a minimum of 3 for each of your journal entries, those can be hard to come by, and because you need to quote from primary sources, not just reference them in your journals, then the page numbers that you have, I need to be able to find. So be sure if you're using an older version of the textbooks to let me know which version you're using. All right. The COVID-19 statement. This is one from last year. They haven't actually so far updated it for this year. I assume it's going to be the same. Obviously, you can go to the university's COVID page, but basically It's at the discretion, for the most part, of the school. Again, because we're online, theoretically, this won't be a big problem for us. But if for some reason you need to meet with me and we decide to meet on campus, I may ask you to wear a mask. I will probably wear one. One of the reasons I'm doing it online this semester and not on campus is because I have elderly parents who cannot afford COVID. They've had their vaccines, they've had their boosters, but again, they really can't afford to have it. All right, academic integrity. This is really straightforward. You're going to see it in all of your syllabi. You're going to see it in your course handbook or your college handbook. We take these things really seriously because we have to. Academics trade on their reputations, which means they develop those reputations by citing properly, by giving credit where credit is due, by making sure that they themselves are not stealing work from other people. So we expect the same from our students. So you can always check the student handbook to find out specific requirements. But yeah, it's again pretty straightforward. Academic respect. I appreciate that we're going to be talking to each other a lot, and we're going to have times we're going to disagree. There are a lot of big issues we're going to talk about in this course, not the least of which is slavery, not the least of which is the shifts in slavery from what's called ancient or old style slavery to transatlantic slavery. We get that far in this course. We're going to be talking about racism. We're going to be talking about the rise of capitalism. We're going to be talking about a lot of ideas that people have different opinions about. And I want that. I want us to be able to exchange these ideas and our own perspectives and biases, but in a respectful, cordial way. The agree to disagree. I'm not grading you on your opinion. I'm grading you on how well you support your opinion with historical information. So I ask of you that you respect your other students in the course as well. You're going to need to, because you're going to have to work with them, especially in terms of the peer comments that you need to post during the course of the discussions. All right, the ADA statement. Again, because this is online, for the most part, this should not be too difficult for most of us. But if there are things or accommodations you need, again, see the Office of Disability Services. Attendance policy, again, because this is an online course, I take attendance by your participation in the course. You must post in the discussion post, and if you don't, I will count that as an unexcused absence. And in this course, you're effectively allowed 3. After that, I have the right to drop you. Certainly, I have the right to report you to the registrar. So if you have reasons why you can't post, you need to let me know as soon as you can. So again, there's the official GGC student attendance policy. And again, our week will operate on Tuesday to Thursday. Respect for diversity. We're talking about a lot of different cultures, a lot of different societies, a lot of different religions, and a lot of different belief systems. So I expect you, again, to be respectful of everyone here. Same applies with gender, Title IX, and all of the other various and sundry areas of respect. This, the safety and security, again, mostly because we're going to be doing this from home. Some of you, though, if you're on campus, you need to know these things. You definitely need to have the rave alert system. You need to be familiar with the active shooter video. I encourage you to know how to act in case of emergency. Last semester, spring semester, we had an active shooter moment. These things are pretty scary. I encourage you to be sure you know how to respond if need be. All right, so the rest of this is straightforward. Like I said, this is the syllabus. At this point, I want to go then to the other things you're going to need. Here's your discussion rubric. Now, these are not the questions. The questions themselves are going to be, again, under the discussion tab right up here each week. I've already got them here and in order. Discussion 1, they are all the way down. Your first week's discussion is going to require that you read the first chapter in any of the textbooks, because all the textbooks start the same way. If for some reason you don't have the textbook yet, the university is sold out of it, or they have to order more, or you're ordering it from Amazon or somewhere else and it's going to be a week or so before it gets here, then you may use this Encyclopedia Britannica entry on the Stone Age. No, I don't want you to do that. So yes, you may read that. It is very long. It is the length of the chapter of the textbook. There you go. See, here we go, Stone Age. See how long this wonderful thing is? And it's going to take you through all, as we get down here, all the different parts of the world. I expect you to know all of this. This is all the same stuff again that is located in the textbook. So if you don't have a textbook, here's a place to go. All right, you're also, though, going to be reading, go back, there we go. You're also going to be reading, why are you doing this to me? From, oh, come on, here we go. You're also going to be reading from Mr. Harari. Again, Sapiens, a very wonderful book. It is linked over here in the content section under the first week. I'll show you where that is. Again, if you go to content and you go down here on the side to week 1, the origins of mankind, and you pull it up, look, required readings. Each week, I give you a nice little introduction. I tell you what your required readings are for the week, which is where you will get the chapters you need in whichever of the 3 textbooks you use. But then if I have, in this case, a section from Harari that I have uploaded as a file, it will be here under required readings. You will also find in each week a section of PowerPoints, which will cover PowerPoints, particularly for von Siver, since like I said, that's my preferred book. You may use those. It'll present basically your PowerPoint of the information in there, which should complement pretty much any of the others that you use. I also in each week have some primary sources. Now let's talk for a minute about what a primary source is, because you need 3 of those in each of your journals, not your discussion post. Your discussion post is just basically talking about the ideas presented in the readings, but the journals are on specific topics and require you, here I'll use the journal rubric, 3 primary sources. If you click on this link, it will take you to a YouTube video explaining what primary sources are. For our purposes, though, a primary source, because this is a history class, is a source produced in the time period in the past by someone living through it. It's not the main source you're using. It is a primary, meaning first, something produced in that time period. In each of the weeks, I have some primary sources in there. If you are using any of the textbooks I recommended, well, no, Bentley may not have. Bentley's supposed to have sources, but they may not. But definitely if you're using von Siver's or you're using Strayer and Nelson, they have primary sources in those textbooks as well, in each chapter. Von Siver's puts them at the end of the chapter. It actually has a little appendix called Primary Source Readings. Strayer and Nelson have them in sections called Landmarks in World History, or historian, well, not historian sources, but in sources and working with evidence. Those sections in each chapter are primary sources, and that's what we historians call them. Primary sources are evidence. That's what you're drawing from. So in each of your journals, again, these are the papers that are due every 3 weeks, and you have 4 of them. You're going to need at least 3 primary sources, which will be sources from the past. You can pick some of them out of the primary source folder in each week. You may use them out of your textbook. You may use them from a variety of other places. As I said, I've got that link to the Internet History Source Books by Paul Halsell at Fordham University. These are great primary sources. Snippets of them that you can go to for different time periods. I've got them outlined, different time periods, different places, different cultures. Really good things you can use. But you're going to need at least 3 of them for each of your journals. And you, again, are going to use them to support your arguments about the questions for each of those journals. So, okay, secondary sources are things like essays. Tertiary sources are books like your textbooks or encyclopedias. That explains what those are. And then, of course, again, the APA and your works cited page, the required ones of those. In the course of this journal thing, I've given you some examples of APA citation. Here you go. That's what your end of the sentence citation should look like. Author, year, location, and then it should match directly to your works cited entry. Again, there's your author name, there's the actual title, the date, and then where it's located. In this case, it was in Strayer and Nelson, Ways of the World, Volume 2, the 4th edition, again, one of the older ones, the date that edition was published, and the page number. So these are examples of how you want to source. And this is the rubric for how I'm going to grade these. I look at specific things in your journals and in your discussions for the journals. Your general knowledge, which is your history, your critical thinking, which is how you answer the question and how well you support it, your primary sources, your use of 3 of them and how well you do that, and then your citation and your clarity. So for the discussion posts, similar sort of thing. The rubric here is at the end. Again, here are some examples of how to cite, again from Strayer and Nelson. In your discussions, you will have to do a little bit of research. You want a multimedia component, either a video or something that you found online, not from Wikipedia. You're going to want to read this part. Something you find at a valid, what I think of as academic source. You can use magazine articles. You can use journal entries. You can use anything from a reputable place. You can use a TED Talk. You can use something from PBS. Anything that actually complements and helps to support whatever argument you're making for the discussion. You want to include that. And you want to have a section, a couple of sentences or a short paragraph in your discussion post explaining what your multimedia is and how it's helped you understand this topic better, what benefit it will be to me and or to your fellow students. You do not want it to be something I have already linked. The idea here is that you're going to go out and find this thing. This is the little research you're going to use for each of the discussion posts. All right, and then the last thing I want to show you, I guess I don't have it here, but also linked both on the top page, again, also up here in the meta, is this document on how and when to cite. This is a basic crash course in APA citation if you need it. So you can download it, you can look at it. You will notice also on the course overview page, I have linked all of these important documents right here at the bottom: the syllabus, the discussion rubric, the journal rubric. The notes themselves are what you're going to need for a thorough discussion and a thorough journal entry, and then how and when to cite. So these are all right here on the top page. If you can't remember where to look at them, they'll be there. I'm actually going to try to send them all to you on the first day of class, and hopefully, if I remember, again sometime after the W day at the end of week 1 for those of you who are new. But yeah, the idea here is that hopefully I have now gotten you up to speed on what we're looking at, what I expect from you. We will hit the ground running. Your first discussion post is due on Thursday, this coming Thursday by midnight. If you have questions, I encourage you to email me. I will address them in email as quickly as I can. If I get the same question from enough of you, I will either open us up for a Zoom conference or I'll post yet another awesome video, just like this one, explaining to you how these things work. I'm looking forward to the course. I hope you are too. Again, for those of you who are brand spanking new to the world of college, and particularly to the world of college history, this is not your high school college course or your high school history course. This is your college history course. If we were going to do it the same way that you did it in high school, you wouldn't need to take it again. This is all about that critical thinking, and critical thinking is not only asking, gee, what is the information in front of me, but it's also asking, why is this information the information I have in front of me? For those who like to say you think outside the box, what that literally means is you think past what you're reading to how what you're reading got to be in front of you. Who wrote it? Why did they write it? What was their objective? And for primary sources, how did they view their world? And how is their view of the world different from our view of the world today? So all of those things are very much a function of what we're doing in this course. Welcome aboard. I look forward to hearing from you. And as I said, if you have questions, please email me. I will respond to you as quickly as I can. And again, if you want more of these kind of videos about the information, let me know. I'll see what I can do.